Hello and welcome to the report of the second round of the BPB Limburg Open. A round where we saw many GMs struggling, quite a few not getting more than just a draw, and even one big upset, which is in the game between Dutch player Dirk van Doren and Brazilian grandmaster Alexander Fier. I'll just walk you through the entire game because there are a few interesting points I want to show you. So let's just go through the opening, which is a Timon of Sicilian. And at the castles, black goes knight e5. So far so good. I think the normal move here is to play h3 just to prevent the knight jumping to g4. It all makes sense, but white played the move knight a3, which is not too common. And black even played a maybe more uncommon move, knight takes f3, which is hardly ever being played. White takes back with the queen, bishop d6, and black's plan is obvious. He wants to target the h2 pawn and the white king side in general. So white goes king h1, just a clever move. Now if black takes, you can play g3, just win the bishop like that. So king h1 is a nice move, and black goes h5, and it's pretty obvious that knight g4 is coming at some point, and white is under some pressure, so white decided to go for knight a4 and try to create some counterplay on the queen side. His idea is to go knight b6, attack the rook, and also intend to go knight c4 to get rid of this bishop on d6, which is quite an important piece in black's attack. So black goes knight g4, white plays knight b6, and suddenly black is totally winning, but he probably missed it for some reason. Because he can take on h2, of course, but if he just manages to find bishop c5, then suddenly it's all clear why black is totally winning. Because queen h2 checkmate is a threat, but also the knight on b6 is hanging, and white simply cannot protect both. He can play g3 if he wants, but then use bishop takes b6, is winning the piece, and probably the game as well. But he didn't play this move. He didn't see bishop c5 for some reason. He went knight takes h2 and he decided to sacrifice an exchange instead. So knight takes h2, knight takes a8, queen b8. White moves the queen as well. Black takes the knight on a8, and white moves the rook. So black sacrificed the exchange instead of winning a piece. But still, the position is quite interesting. Black goes knight g4. Bishop d4, queen b8, and black is of course still going to try to create some threat on h2. Because the idea is quite obvious, even though he did miss bishop c5 a few moves back. So white goes king g1. And here black played b5, which is probably a little bit too slow. Just to show you guys, bishop c5 is not really working at this point. Because now bishop takes e5, queen h2 check, king f1, king h1, and the king just walks to e2. And is quite safe. The queen and the knight are simply not enough to checkmate the white king. So the flight square on e2 is quite important for the white king. So black played b5 instead, and now white actually plays bishop e2, which is a bit of a surprise, because as we just saw, e2 is an important flight square for the king. And now he blocks his own square. So black goes bishop b4 because he sees the opportunity to win back the exchange. But white now manages to capture the knight. Bishop takes e1, bishop takes h5, and white cleverly gave back the exchange, but is now up a pawn. Takes on g7, rook h7, queen g4, threatening something like bishop e5, followed by queen g8, attacking the king and the rook. So black goes bishop f8 to prevent this plan. Bishop f6, but now white's position is simply overwhelming. He's an extra pawn, and is so much better in this position. Let's fast forward through this part because I want to show you the nice move white played a few moves later. Rook d3, b4, d3, a5, e5, d5, rook h3, and now white is planning to go queen g8. He simply protects the bishop, goes queen g8, and if black has to move the rook, then bishop g7 is going to win material for sure. So black is already in big trouble. He tried queen c4 to activate the queen. Queen g8 still coming, queen e4, so he protects the rook, but now white finds a very beautiful idea. There are probably more ways to get a good position here, but the move he played is quite nice. He played bishop e2. The bishop was targeting f7, but he finds a new square on b5, which is even more dangerous. So, because the rook is under attack, black has to take on h3 with the rook. Now bishop b5 check, forcing bishop d7. He takes the bishop, king takes, and he takes the pawn on f7. King goes to c6, and he takes the pawn on e6 with check as well. And after a few more checks, he ends up capturing the rook on h3, and the endgame with up 3 pawns took him another 22 moves, but he managed to convert this one without, well, any trouble basically. So a very nice win by Dirk van Doren. Very good game against Fier, even though he did blunder in the opening. But then again, your opponent has to play the winning move, obviously, to claim the win. So messy game, but nice victory for Dirk van Doren. So another nice victory was in the game from Christian Bauer against Fred Berend. And I'll just jump all the way to move 10. It's a London system, white played. We reach this position, it's black to move, and black decides to play f6 to get rid of the knight on e5. But now white goes knight c4, and this is the move you might have missed. Black went queen d8, white takes the knight on e4, pawn takes, and puts the knight on d6, and all of a sudden the entire black position, well, it's just paralyzed. Black can't really move anything, and the bishop needs to protect b7. The knight is, well, a bit silly on a6, and these two white knights and the bishop and f4, they're huge. So black takes on d4, pawn takes, and he tries to do something about these knights. He doesn't want to give up the bishop, but bishop takes d6. So he goes g5, but that's a bit too much. Bishop g3, f5, trying to, play f4, try to trap the bishop, but white obviously goes bishop e5. Now he decides to take the knight on d6, but in the meantime he damages kingside quite a bit. He goes knight c7, queen h5, knight d5, queen h6, threatening checkmate on g7, so black goes queen e7. And now white plays it very beautifully. He goes h4, and it seems like black can close the position with g4. But now white decides to exchange the queens, which is a surprise because, he's attacking, trying to checkmate. You would say you need the queen, but black takes, pawn takes, and now you can see the threat of g6 followed by rook h8 checkmate is huge, and there's just not much what black can do about it. So he goes knight e7 to protect the g6 square, and now white is simply going to involve the last piece that hasn't joined the attack yet, which is the rook on a1. So he goes rook h6, knight g6, king d2, and as you can see the rook is coming from a1 to h1. Rook d8, rook a h1, and black is still trying to defend, but all the white pieces are joining the attack now. g6, rook d7, and there are many ways to win this. He played knight e8, which is a nice move. Black takes on g6, knight f6, king f7, and rook h7 check, and black resigned because after knight takes h7, rook takes, king f8, knight takes on d7 with check, bishop takes, and rook h8 is winning the rook on a8, and the extra rook, plenty material to win the game. So a very nice win by Christian Bauer, who is actually playing his co-leader, Ivan Sokolov, as we speak. And then I want to show you one more game, because he tried for so long, Matthew Sadler. He was pushing the entire game, and just pushing. And at some point, it looked like his opponent, Felix Klein, collapsed. He has a comfortable edge the entire endgame. And black here played the move g6, and it seemed black blundered for some reason. Pawn takes, king takes, and suddenly knight takes d4. The c pawn is pinned, and we all thought that black collapsed under the pressure and losing a few pawns and probably the endgame. But then something happened. Black took on f4, knight takes e6, black took on g3, king takes, and he played h5, trying to exchange some pawns. So white takes on h5, knight takes, king f3, and it looks easy. White just captures the c5 pawn, is up 2 pawns. You would say that's enough to win the endgame, especially 2 connected pass pawns. Should be enough. But black goes king f5. And from this point on, it's pretty forced already, the entire variation. So knight takes c5, knight e5 check, king e3, and knight f4. And all of a sudden, white's in trouble, because what's going on here? If white does nothing, then black simply is going to take on d3. Knight takes d3 is coming. Knight takes, and knight takes c4. And, well, in this case, you're also losing the bishop. But even in general, this ending, if you don't win the bishop, because white still has a move to play, you can't really win that endgame. So black is simply going to give a knight for 2 pawns and then make a draw, and there's nothing white can do about it. He went king d4, try and protect the c4 pawn, but simply knight d2 check, forcing the king back to e3, knight f4. And Sadler here realized that he has to go into this endgame, so he played bishop b4, knight takes, knight takes, knight takes c4. And he did torture his opponent for another 50 moves, but Felix Klein just stood there and held the draw, which, well, shouldn't be too difficult, but still, if Sadler is trying to beat you for more than 50 moves in such an endgame, it's always going to be tough. So Sadler half a point behind the leaders. As I mentioned, Sokolov and Bauer playing each other in the lead. Also Koen Leenhouts and Dirk van Doorn playing each other. And the German player Frischmann is also on 2 out of 2 points, at least from the top players. So we have an exciting run coming up. Many players drew their game. So we're expecting a lot of action from this point on. Many players who still want to win the tournament to get a high rank need to step up at this point. So thank you for watching, and hopefully I can deliver you the report of round 3 tonight, but we'll see about it. So thanks for watching, and goodbye.